Rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and good afternoon, brothers and sisters. My name is Aydin Anwar, an Uyghur born and raised in the U.S. I am proudly standing here today representing the Uyghur diaspora as we stand against the oppression of our Uyghur brothers and sisters in East Turkestan and abroad. We stand here today in front of the Egyptian embassy in DC to protest the recent detainment of hundreds of innocent Muslim Uyghurs in Egypt. They are being rounded up to be deported to China, where they will be subject to persecution, detention, torture, lengthy prison sentences, and perhaps even death. And their crime? Being Uyghur and studying Islam. In its so-called crackdown on Islamic extremism, China has significantly tightened its security measures and prohibited religious practice in East Turkestan, a land that has been under the occupation of Communist China since 1949. You may also know of the region as the Xinjiang province of China, which in Chinese literally means new territory. As part of its brutal crackdown, China is ordering the return of all students abroad. And Egypt is complying with that order, and by doing so is putting the lives and liberties of Uyghur students at grave risk. Various reports suggest that airports in Egypt are not preventing Uyghurs from leaving the country. Not just students, but anyone who has identified as Uyghur. Some Uyghur students have already been deported, and many more are in detention in Egypt awaiting deportation. And then there are others who are hiding within Egypt's borders and praying they won't be found and sent off to meet a tragic fate in China. We stand here today to demand that the Egyptian government stops detaining and deporting these Uyghurs, and that those who have been detained be released as soon as possible. We demand that the Egyptian government set aside their diplomatic relations with Communist China and recognize these students' right to education, religious freedom, human dignity, and life. By deporting these Uyghur students to China, Egypt is grossly undermining human dignity and becoming complicit in China's dehumanization of the Uyghur people. I know this because last summer I spent 2 months in Turkey interviewing Uyghur refugees, being disgusted at the extent of China's disregard for human life. Several of my interviewees were political prisoners, and they described the inhumane treatment they witnessed in Chinese prisons. They told me that Uyghur women in the prisons are constantly raped, contract HIV, and are sent off to the hospital to get abortions every 3 or 4 months because the Chinese authorities are constantly raping them. One of the refugees I talked to told me he was forced to sit and face the wall for more than 12 hours a day without moving. He and his Uyghur cellmates were allowed to use the restroom only once every 12 hours. They were forced to memorize Chinese poetry, and if they were unable to, the Chinese authorities made them bathe in their own feces. Any indication that a prisoner was praying or engaging in any religious practice or disobedience toward Chinese authorities in these prisons resulted in that prisoner being beaten and beaten again until he was unconscious. And they're intentionally spreading HIV and AIDS to the Uyghur prisoners. Chinese authorities bring inner-hand Chinese suffering from the disease to shave the prisoners' heads, making sure that their scalps bleed and that they contract HIV from their HIV/AIDS disease barbers. Now, when you and I go to the hospital, we expect to leave better, right? But healthy Uyghur prisoners in China don't leave the prison's hospitals alive. And for those that actually need medical attention, do not receive it. Instead, they receive a slow and painful death. They are left to rot away and die in their prison cells with maggots eating away at them through their torture wounds, as told by one of my interviewees. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. There is so much more that's happening in those cages, things we can't even imagine. Now China wants to fill up those prisons with Uyghur students studying abroad. And Egypt has decided to support China further this heinous violation of human rights and dignity. So we're here, Uyghurs, Americans, Muslim, students, human beings, and we demand that Egypt let our Uyghur brothers and sisters free. Do not turn a blind eye to their suffering. Do not send Uyghur students and families off to their deaths. We demand that Egypt release those they have already detained and stop rounding up more to deport to China. We demand that Egypt not stand with our cruel oppressors. We thank you all for coming here to support our brothers and sisters in Egypt, to stand up for human rights and dignity for the Uyghur people. And we hope you will continue to support those that are suffering in Egypt and East Turkestan in any way you are able to. Pray for them, write to the relevant authorities, donate your resources, and remain woke. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakallah khair.
Takbir!
Allahu Akbar!
Takbir!
Allahu